This is a video game. This is the gaming industry, and the gaming industry is Nintendo. That's how it was at the dawn of the fourth generation. What's this? A Nintendo. What are you doing? Well, we're playing Nintendo. It doesn't even have to actually be made by Nintendo. People are still gonna call it a Nintendo. And why wouldn't they? After all, it was Nintendo that saved the North American video game industry from being a mere fad. Their name, their brand, had become synonymous with video games. And who was at the center of it all? Way more than a genre definer, Mario radically changed the rules when it came to the very core of game design. Mario, and the Nintendo that you played him on, had become household words. So how could anyone compete with the undisputed innovator of the most popular genre in gaming? By once again, changing the game. You know, every Sonic history video that I've ever seen puts so much focus on Sonic's character design, his attitude, his marketing, but what's discussed a lot less, or what was at the core of all that? The game design. I believe that Sonic could have come out looking exactly like he does with the exact marketing push he had, and it wouldn't have meant a whole lot if the core game hadn't reflected those changes. I mean, here's Felix the cat. He's an anthropomorphic hero with big round eyes and a little black nose, and a mouth that somehow changes what side of the face it's on depending on perspective. You know, he had some video games back in the day too, but does anyone remember those? Okay, fair enough, we can take it to games that people do remember, and this is going to be controversial, but what if Mario had a cannon arm and could steal powers? Okay, what if Mario could inhale enemies and could, steal powers? What if Mario had a pogo stick? It's all flat, blocky terrain, it's all straight lines, it's all about jumping correctly and collecting stuff, and that's great! I would never accuse these games of being rip-offs. They emphasize different things, they play differently, and they're wonderful series in their own right. Gaming has always evolved partly by iterating on what worked before, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's what was so brilliant about Sonic the Hedgehog. Super Mario World was
a bit more Mario.
But Sonic was something new. I'm not pretending that he didn't take inspiration from contemporary platformers, because he did. But look at it this way. Mario invented the wheel, and platformers up to this point were like horse-drawn carriages. Sonic? Sonic invented the motor. And to demonstrate what a revolution it was, all we need to do is take a hard look at the Alpha and Omega, Green Hill Zone. Well, right off the bat, this just looks really different. The ground is not quite just a flat, straight line. Here's some rings, we can jump up and get those. Our ring counter goes up, don't know what they're for, but whatever. And here we find our first enemy, a Motobug. Now chances are you're not going to be used to Sonic's speed the first time you play this, and you might slam right into him. If you do, the ring lock's effect is big, loud, and obvious, and you'll see those three rings go flying, teaching you a little about how Sonic stays alive. Let's see, all the buttons jump, so I'll just jump on this guy, and yeah, that works, okay. Now how about that monitor? It's not moving, there's a picture of a ring on it. We know rings are good, so it's probably not hazardous. Now here's where the game teaches you something that sets Sonic apart. When we killed the Motobug, we jumped on him from above. If you try to jump from the ground into the monitor, what you'll do instead is break it from the side. Now this is important, the monitor makes the same as the Motobug, which means Sonic doesn't have to attack from above. He spins when he jumps, and we just learned that as long as he's doing that, he can break stuff. Sonic visibly slows down as he runs up a steep incline, but when he comes back down the other side, something very important happens. Boom. There it is. That's what makes this game different from anything that had come before. Physics. Platforming heroes up till now had been static. Mega Man ran at this speed every time. Mario could jump this high. Sonic had a sense of mobility and weight to him that mimicked the controlled chaos of a pinball machine. Nothing about Sonic is static. You can make him accelerate to be this fast, but he can be faster. He can normally jump this high, but he can jump higher. And Green Hill is all about teaching you about this concept. Want to reach the higher ground without bothering with all that platforming? If you're skilled enough at building up momentum and using the terrain to your advantage, you can. But either way, you'll come to these tunnels. What do? They force you into a rolling state, and then this happens. It's hard to wrap my head around just what a spectacle this must have been to gamers of the time. And again, it's teaching you something. There's no spin dash in this first game, but we just learned that Sonic can roll on the ground. We learned that when he's doing so, he picks up a whole lot more momentum. He's not as mobile in that state, and he can't gain acceleration on his own. but as long as you've got the terrain on your side, you won't just be protected from enemies, you'll be a whole lot faster as well. And Green Hill just keeps teaching you, just keeps throwing things at you, just keeps being fantastic. Want that extra life? Use what you've learned. Secrets can be hidden in the environment. If you figured out rolling to this point, you may even discover that Sonic can burrow through walls. It's also quite deceptively hard. Blindly pushing ahead will hurt you. Just about everybody finds out about bottomless pits right here in Act 2. The classics are sometimes dismissed by non-fans as being all about holding right to win, but that was never the case. Eventually you get to a boss. I went into a lot of detail last time about how the bosses can add to your repertoire, and the same holds true for Sonic 1. Beating this guy is all about mastering some skillful jump timing, or maybe just scoring a bunch of free hits when he flies in, but whatever, it's the first boss. Run to the right, hit the capsule, free the animals, and so ends Green Hill Zone. With its beautiful design, incredibly varied and well-structured map, and intuitive teaching methods, it stands as one of the most perfect opening levels the industry has ever seen. And then... Objection! Here's the thing. Green Hill went through more iterations, more changes, and really just had more focus than any other zone in the game. And it shows. Nowhere is this more obvious than in Marble Zone. Now maybe the contrast was intentional, because it is the opposite of Green Hill in so many ways. The background's a lot more static and a little bit uglier. The music is catchy and kind of foreboding, but it does loop a lot more quickly. But the real problem is the level design. It's slow, platformy, and way more linear. In fact, in the course of all 3 acts, the zone only splits significantly a single time. The skills you learned in Green Hill are rarely put to use here, as the underground portions that make up the majority of Marble Zone are all about navigating through, yes, straight lines. I'm sure the intention was to make sure the player was used to the way that platforming worked, to master the jumps that would become so important down the line. That's fine, there's nothing wrong with slowing down the pace, but you have to keep it interesting. Marble Zone takes everything that had made Sonic such a fresh experience to this point and eviscerates it. It goes against the way the engine was designed. It is, dare I say it, a Mario level. And while no other zone was nearly as bad as that one, it's clear that Sonic Team did not quite have a grip on what made their new star special just yet. Back in my Mario Kart retrospective, I talked about a concept I called superannuation. The subjective view that a newer game does so many things better and builds on an original so much that the earlier game seems obsolete in comparison. When I was a kid, I played Sonic 1 after both 2 and 3. Playing them in that order only accentuated how rough around the edges this first one was. What were improvements in 2 and 3 felt like omissions to me here. I mean, a lot of the same badniks would show up zone after zone after zone. The special stage was this 2D rotating oddity with a psychedelic background and just weird music. The Chaos Emeralds didn't even do anything beyond getting you a different ending. Most obviously, well, just look at what happens every time I let someone not so familiar with the series try this one. They duck and jump, constantly. I wonder why. The Spin Dash was a perfect, natural addition to Sonic's moveset. Not having this kind of like trying to go back and use dial-up internet. It's like, how did we ever get anything done like this? Let's just say there's a reason that so many compilations like Sonic Jam, the Taxman and Stealth ports, and pretty much every major hack of this game puts the Spin Dash back in. I guess that's why it's important to see this first entry in context. Yeah, it's slower paced and a little rough around the edges, but maybe all that was just a means to ease players into what a speed-based platformer would be like. It's really hard for me to say, but I don't want anyone to walk away with the impression that I don't think Sonic the Hedgehog is fun, or even that it's aging badly. Putting aside my own preferences, I would argue that Super Mario World was actually objectively the better game. It was longer, it was more varied, it was solid and consistent, and felt very sure of itself. But Mario had been the gold standard for so many years. Sonic the Hedgehog sent a jolt of lightning that recast the gaming industry, and Nintendo was reeling from the impact, because faster than a sonic boom, Sega wasn't just competing, Sega was winning. TGC has about 750 subs as of this video. If you want to become a fan before we really get popular and sell out, subscribe and follow and like and do it! If you want more Sonic, the retrospective for Sonic 2 inexplicably came out before this one. Next up, Sonic CD. So I'll CD you next time! Okay, don't become a fan. I don't deserve you after that.